Hello, hello, hello. I am Matt Williamson. How's it going? I am recording this Thursday evening. You'll get it Friday. Hopefully enjoy it all weekend. I'm sure I will record something Sunday so you have it Memorial Day, even though it's Memorial Day. That I'm sure I can figure that out. Don't worry. And then Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, I will be down at the Steelers facility checking out minicamp and actually seeing players do football stuff, which I'm excited about. Be the first time I see DK Metcalf in person and Slay and all the draft picks and all that good stuff. So body types and the way they move and all that stuff, I'm excited to do just some preliminary 2025 Steelers stuff. But we're going to look backwards, though, today on the 2024 season. And it wouldn't seem like much, but this is such a strong Steeler outlier, I had to bring it up. And this is all from Pro Football Focus's data. And they published their quarterback's check down rate. Now, I don't exactly know the exact definition of a check down, but I assume, and I strongly assume, you get off your first read, maybe even your second read, and then you check it down to the flat, almost always to a running back. Okay. I think we can all figure out to some degree without exactly the Webster's definition of it, of what a check down is. And why do I bring this up? Because who had the highest check down rate in the entire NFL last year? Russell Wilson. 19.2% of his pass attempts. He threw what they call total aimed passes, 318 of them over the course of the year. And remember, he was hurt. 61 of them were checkdowns. Therefore, about 19% of his throws were checkdowns. Obviously, it's a big number. He's first in the league, highest. But it's such a big number at over 19% that the number 2 quarterback, who we'll get to in a minute, was only at 14.5%. Number 3 was Bo Nix in a really running back heavy pass attack in Denver at 14.3. Then we get into Kyler Murray, Jordan Love, Kirk Cousins, Geno Smith, Jared Goff. And then rounding out the top 10 are Lamar Jackson and Joe Burrow, which implies, too, that checking down's not always bad. But we can look at this through a lot of lenses, and I'm going to let you do that. Is that just being ultra conservative? I know that Wilson held the ball long, so are a lot of these checkdowns late in the down. I'm looking for my first read, doesn't come open. Look to my second read, doesn't come open. It's better than me running it. I'll dump it to Najee or Warren, and we get some stuff there, Okay, sometimes it's the right choice, but he leads the league by a massive margin. And the other thing I found interesting too was on those 61 checkdowns, he completed 53 of them. Of course, that should be a high percentage. For 389 yards, which won't be a big number, but 21 touchdowns came from the checkdowns. So if it ended up in a touchdown, that was a good thing, right? So I don't 100% know how to interpret this data. But then they broke it down to just on third and fourth downs, which I would think a very, very high percentage of checkdowns on third and fourth downs are throwing the ball short of the sticks. Wilson was once again top of the league at 16.5%, followed by Dalton, who had very few attempts, 14%. And then you get into like Bo Nix at 13. And again, Lamar's on that list at 12.3, but mostly these are bad quarterbacks. I mean, it's Wilson, Dalton, Nix, Mac Jones, Derek Carr, Tyler Huntley, Geno, Lamar, Rattler, O'Connell, guys that are young that don't know what else to do, third and fourth down. That part's a little more disturbing to me. Now, we're going to get into some more layers here in a minute, though, because this is the part hold on to your hats that I think is a little bonkers. BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for all your sports betting action. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA to NHL playoffs to MLB to UFC and boxing, BetOnline has you covered for all your online wagering info. In between games, head over to the BetOnline casino with all top Vegas-style games, including poker and live casino. BetOnline, the game starts here. So I sort of teased it. I didn't tell you who number 2 was on the check down list last year. Again, Russell Wilson on 19.2% of his total aimed throws. That's not a throwaway. That's not a spike. It's not a sack. I'm trying to complete the pass. He threw 318 of those passes. 19.2 of them are checkdowns. Aaron Rodgers is number 2. Again, it's 14.5. So he had 552 aimed passes, checked down on 80 of them. That worries me a little, with the assumption that Rodgers is going to be the Steelers quarterback, because sort of like late career Ben, especially early in the season when he was recovering from an injury, didn't have Devontae Adams, he was pretty apt to say, I'm not sticking around the pocket. I'm dumping this thing down. Oh, first read's not there. Dump it down. Second, get rid of it. Maybe he doesn't even get to read 2, although he reads things very, very fast. Now, I'm going to include this graphic in the podcast information. I assume it will get to you. You'll be able to see it. I don't know how the technical stuff works. But it has the check down rate for basically all the prominent quarterbacks and their yards per attempt on checkdowns. So the opposite end of the spectrum is Anthony Richardson pretty notably has the lowest checkdown rate you're going to find. Never does it. Now, Jonathan Taylor's not a great receiving back. Richardson's ridiculously raw, even now. He has like 200 pass attempts in the NFL. But the key here with him is it's not there, I'm going to run. And I'm sure that's what coaching has told them too. Instead of you sitting there patting the ball, Anthony, and going from Pittman to Downs to check down, go from Pittman to just run. That adds up. But he is at the total opposite end of the spectrum. Again, Wilson stands alone way higher than anybody else in terms of check down rate. But who's second when you even expand this further in terms of sample size? Mason Rudolph. That pushes Rodgers to 3rd. And Justin Fields is 4th. So on this graphic, there are probably 40 or 50 prominent passers from last year. Jacoby Brissett's on here. Will Levis is on here. I mean, many teams, including the Steelers, have 2. But the 4 guys that check the ball down the most, highest percentage, are the 2 Steelers from last year, the current Steeler, Rudolph, and what I think will be the Steelers' starting quarterback in 2025 in Aaron Rodgers. Again, some of those guys that are here that are high, well, not super high, but Goff's pretty high on the list. Love's pretty high on the list. Kyler, I mentioned Burrow. But is this a Tomlin thing? I'm sure I will get a ton of comments saying that's just Tomlin being conservative. They only want conservative quarterbacks. There's a case for that. I'm not going to tell you you're wrong. Is that how it's being coached? We know Wilson really through his whole career. I've always said he's got a driver in his bag and a wedge and a putter. Doesn't really have any irons. He's throwing bombs or he's checking down. And he doesn't throw the middle of the field. That's never been Rodgers, although Rodgers is really good at knowing where to go with the football in terms of being risk adverse, but also maximizing what you could possibly do. But that was his best years, and that's a couple of years removed, and we had a whole injury year in there in between. You might remember, when Rudolph was here, he would gladly dump it down to the backs. But he would also be in a limited backup role. Hey, just don't kill us, Mason. I'm sure that's the coaching aspect of it. But Fields was also really high. And it's not like the Steelers have the best receiving backs of all time. Got to get in their hands over and over. I don't know. I'm really interested for your guys' comments on this. I think there are some low-hanging fruit we could pick from this. But the fact that I'm looking at a chart with 50 or so quarterbacks on it, and 4 of them are all the way to the right, are heavily tied to the Steelers only, is pretty bonkers to me. All right, guys, take care.